are constantly bombarded with new games, announcements of the next big thing by the studio that developed the acclaimed Crappy Grind Revenge and the classic Super Paywall saga. While it's fairly easy to see which games may have enough quality to warrant a decent player base, sometimes we're surprised by unexpected cancellations. Some games don't get enough time to see its potential realized, while others didn't really turn out as appealing as one initially expected. Either way, a shutdown usually means that millions go to waste. Jobs are lost, and some players are disappointed because they were really enjoying the game. In no particular order, let's take a look at some cancellations and what led to that. A MOBA with superheroes and supervillains. Sounds like a pretty good chaotic little bit of fun to us. That's probably what Turbine Entertainment thought as well when the studio decided to develop Infinite Crisis. Supported by the cast of the DC Comics multiverse, having Batman and Superman fighting alongside, or the Joker and Harley Quinn, among others. What could go wrong? Apparently, a lot. It's rumored that Infinite Crisis was an extremely expensive beast for Turbine, and the returns were pretty low. In the end, the player base was just kinda too small to support further development, and this MOBA was shut down without having enough time to truly shine. As you may remember, when League of Legends was released, it earned some mild reviews, but continued development ultimately, and it turned into this colossal game that it is nowadays. Now, Triad Wars was kind of doomed since the day that it was announced, and it's really not that the prospect of playing an MMORPG based on the surprising hit Sleeping Dogs wasn't appealing. It was, and just thinking of it actually still gives us chills. Driving around a large open city, fighting rival gangs, doing some shady business, and making our underground empire grow actually sounds like a lot of fun. But, however, what we got was a single-player game that reused many of the assets from Sleeping Dogs and didn't try to be its own game, making Triad Wars an asynchronous multiplayer game, meaning you play alone and just kind of compare your performance with other players through stats. About as good a decision as making League of Legends the same way. Yeah, it sucked. Fighting AI characters while raiding other players' bases meant that it all kind of felt soulless, robotic, a grind without any true human interaction. Developer United Front Games was working on co-op before it all went to shit, but even then, maybe it wouldn't have been enough to save the game. Which was actually kind of a shame because Triad Wars looked good, played really nicely, and had all the elements of a great MMO if just given the right time, budget, and really above all, focus. Let's be completely honest here. Asymmetrical multiplayer games aren't the greatest idea ever. I mean, Evolve says hi. Shadow Realms was BioWare's take on the 4 versus 1 formula, with these heroes going out against a Shadow Lord. Development was apparently chaotic, with a delay and a reboot, but the reason for this was surprising to say the least. See, the studio decided they needed to integrate Electronic Arts' digital store origin with the game, otherwise Shadow Realms would suffer significant budget cuts. Weird stuff for anyone outside of the game design, but it's just the way it goes. In the end, BioWare Austin decided they should focus on helping with EA's other franchises, such as Dragon Age or Mass Effect, and just completely ditch Shadow Realms altogether. No big loss, we believe. Bandai Namco's 2-on-2 Brawler was one of a kind in a free-to-play genre. Based on a Gundam game, it was unusual to get such a fighting game in Western territories. It was fast, fighting mechanics needed to be improved a little bit, but gameplay was already interesting enough if you took the time to learn it, and overall it was fun and addicting. It all began on the wrong foot when you had to buy characters with real money at first, something that was later changed. However, it was honestly just too late, and Rise of Incarnates never got a decent player base to be deemed sustainable. Maybe due to the lack of depth of the customization and progress systems. Or maybe because Bandai Namco didn't give it enough time and resources to really truly shine. In the end, it was actually a unique game that could have grown to become something special and will be sorely missed by a few players. If there's one franchise that could probably work as an MMORPG, then Borderlands is the one. With a huge world, wacky characters to go with, a shit ton of weapons, customization options, yeah, Borderlands Online would probably attract a lot of players. Now, the worst thing that 2K Games could do would be to make it exclusive to a specific region or country. Let's say, I don't know, China, maybe, for example? Yeah, oh well. Anyway, making it heavily instance-based was another decision that was not highly regarded, but everyone stopped caring when 2K China just shut down, and continuing development on Borderlands Online would not yield a favorable return investment, quotations as the studio said. Maybe some other time, with a different focus, and Gearbox directly involved in the development. Yeah, maybe we may just have a true Borderlands MMO. After the very cool State of Decay, Undead Labs went from zombies to Pokemon with Moonrise. A drastic change, but one that could have worked due to the lack of monster collecting battler games. And there was plenty of potential to the game, and it could deliver if it wasn't for a decision or two that turned out for the worst. Making the game for mobile platforms really completely limited its scope and resulted in a handicapped PC version that really struggled to keep players around. So instead of a proper open world or something close to a game, we had these zones that really didn't leave much exploring or wandering about. It was all extremely straightforward and dull, almost pushing Moonrise strictly into PvP territory. Player versus player wasn't enough to save the game, as it still lacked depth anyways. Scarlet Blade made some waves when it launched in March 2013, one of the most popular, if not the most popular FAP-to-play game ever conceived. It's clearly aimed at preteens who still haven't discovered that the internet has much more interesting things than what Scarlet Blade tries to prove, but as an MMORPG, it's pretty standard as far as mechanics go. Not exactly bad, and PvP can be interesting, but it really takes a specific mindset to actually invest your time and possibly your money in a game where you'll mostly be looking at butts and boobs. Some players are fast to defend it, saying it was actually fun to play and that the sexual aspect isn't that significant, but yeah, it's kinda hard to ignore. Ultimately, the game shut down due to technical difficulties and the lack of support from the developers, who is struggling with financial issues. But we honestly doubt that in a perfect situation, the player base would be high enough to even sustain the game. Seeing how the MOBA genre was becoming extremely profitable, EA Electronic Arts wanted a piece of the cake and created Waystone Games with the main purpose of setting its foot into the arena. Dawngate was the game that would rub shoulders with League of Legends and the other trillions of MOBAs, or so they thought. Yeah, as Dawngate didn't even leave open beta. Apparently, even with a lot of improvements and additional features, this game wasn't progressing as the developer was hoping for, whatever that means. We may sound a bit jaded and cranky, but we can't help thinking that most publishers enter the free-to-play market thinking that a game has to be extremely profitable as soon as it enters beta, no matter how many features it may be lacking. If you're not willing to go the distance in a crowded genre such as MOBAs, then why even bother starting? Along the way, Transformers Universe had a serious identity crisis. It's like this kid who isn't quite sure what he will be when he grows up and keeps trying different stuff to see what sticks. Yeah, from an MMORPG to an action MOBA hybrid, Jagex tried to make the best of the license. About half a year of open beta, Transformers Universe was canned. It's not that it was a bad game, not really. It could have been fun, and the transformation feature could add something to a genre that is definitely overcrowded, yeah, but the studio was quick to realign its focus, which to us translates into the player base and revenue wasn't as good as expected. Given the proper budget and the enthusiastic development team, a Transformers Online game could work. See Air Mech, for example. But this one didn't even get enough time to, well, transform. Dead Island isn't the greatest game, and while the sequel is still in the works at this time, it hasn't stopped eSilver from trying to milk it just a little bit. Yeah, okay, a lot of it. There's Escape Dead Island, a totally crap game, and then there's Dead Island Epidemic, a free-to-play MOBA from the makers of Bloodline Champions. Yeah, somewhat surprisingly, Epidemic was a sharp, clever game, and it tried to do its own thing with 3-team battles, waves of AI-controlled zombies, and bosses that required teams to put their differences aside and focus on the same goal. In general, the game was pretty polished and appreciated by those who tried it, but it didn't make it past the open beta phase. Yeah, this is why we can't have nice things. How many games from this list did you play and actually miss? Do you think any of them had a chance of success if given just a little bit more time, maybe budget? Let us know in the comments, and remember to support the games that you do love, even if that means just, I don't know, buying a virtual hat.